This is Under Review, the show that talks about Colorado sports with a sprinkling of national sports stories as well. We're going to start with Major League Baseball as the Texas Rangers earlier this week fired manager Chris Woodward. He had been their manager since 2019. Woodward was hired by the Rangers on November 2nd, 2018. I didn't get the hire by the Texas Rangers as they hired Woodward as their manager. He was not a household name by any means. What I mean by that is he didn't have any managerial experience. He had only been a base coach and served as the base coach for the LA Dodgers in 2018. In fact, he was their third base coach. Not exactly a bench coach who could learn from a manager. It didn't make sense as a hire, but hey, I'm not the Texas Rangers owners or general manager. The Rangers hadn't been in the postseason since 2016, and they were hoping Woodward would end that drought. Well, he certainly did not. In fact, he ended up managing a team and got them worse somehow. The Rangers missed the playoffs every year with him as manager. Their best finish was in 2019, his first year, where they went 78 wins and 84 losses. Texas ended 29 games behind first place Houston in the American League West Division. Also, the Rangers were 18 games back of the second wildcard spot, who ended up being the Tampa Bay Rays. After that, it was all downhill. I would have fired Woodward after last season. The Rangers finished with a dreadful record of 60 wins and 102 losses. I mean, they lost 102 games. Why didn't they let him go then? I don't get it. It was the first time since 1973 that the Rangers lost 100 plus games. What was the point of bringing him back for another year? Maybe to say that last year was a fluke, but he also had his contract. After this year, he had one more year in 2023 and a club option for 2024. Well, it didn't work out because at the time of his firing, the Rangers were 53 and 61, 23 games back of the Houston Astros in the American League West Division. The Rangers finally decided it was time to let him go. If you look at his record, it makes sense that Woodward was gone. The Rangers went 211 wins and 287 losses with him as a manager. Again, 211 and 287, a winning percentage of .424, not winning baseball. So I get it. The problem with this firing is why not wait until the end of the year? The Rangers had 48 games left in the season when they fired him. I would understand if this was June and there were 3 months left in the season. Of course, this year it goes into October. As the regular season ends the first week of October, then you have 4 months. But at least letting him go in June would give the Rangers a chance to turn their season around. It just seems like this is little too late to fire him. The Rangers, though, will finish the season on October 5th when they play the New York Yankees. After that, the Rangers will start a managerial coaching search. I hope they learn their lesson as they need to find a candidate who has Major League Baseball managerial experience. That would be better than just being a third base coach or even a bench coach. You know what? A bench coach would be great, but you need a guy who has managerial experience. Of course, whoever takes over the Texas Rangers as manager next year, the Rangers want to make the postseason at some point. They haven't earned a playoff spot since 2016. The goal for every Major League Baseball team is to win a World Series. The Rangers have never won the World Series in their history, but went to the World Series in back-to-back years in 2010 and 2011. Of course, they lost it both of those seasons. We're going to move on to the NFL. The New York Jets actually played Philadelphia last week in preseason game number 1. The Jets had a scare with their starting quarterback, Zach Wilson. Wilson scrambled during the first quarter and came up limping. It didn't look good, and I was hoping for the best for him. I never want to see a player get hurt, but when I saw the replay, my first thought, since it was a non-contact injury, was that's going to be a torn ACL. It looked like that would be it for him. His season would be done. Although I never speculate, but the injury didn't look good. Now, they actually received great news on him. That is, the New York Jets received great news on Zach Wilson, as it was not a torn ACL, but it was a bone bruise and a meniscus tear. That will keep him out 2 to 4 weeks, and he could possibly be back for week 1 when the Jets play the Baltimore Ravens. Now, looking at the depth chart for the New York Jets, they do have depth at quarterback. The backup is Joe Flacco, who has NFL starting experience. Flacco has been with the Jets over the past 2 years, but as a starter, he has the same amount of wins that I do right now with the New York Jets as starting quarterback. 0. He's 0-5. At least he is a veteran. The other quarterback on the roster who has NFL experience is Mike White, who is in his second year for the New York Jets, and his record is 1-2, passing for 953 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions in his career. So the Jets have depth. The thing is, though, I don't understand why Zach Wilson was playing in a meaningless football game, preseason, I should say. I get Zach Wilson wants to play, but all players want to play. But why was he playing? Robert Saleh, the head coach of the New York Jets, shouldn't have his starters out there in a meaningless football game. I know players want to have reps in a live game, and I get that. But the truth is, Zach Wilson doesn't need that or play in the preseason. This is his second year in the NFL. He knows how to play quarterback in the NFL. The way I look at it is, I never want to see my starting quarterback out on the field in preseason. I know they want to get reps, but they get it in practice. I don't want to see them get hurt in a game and be out for the year in a meaningless football game. The Jets are lucky that Wilson didn't suffer a season-ending injury. At least right now, depending on how he heals, he will be back for the start of the year. Worst case, week 2 or 3. But the fact of the matter is, we will see Zach Wilson out there. This is a lesson learned for all NFL teams. Do not play your starting quarterback in a meaningless football game. Let them have reps during practice. That should be enough to show the coaching staff, yes, I can handle the playbook and play at the NFL level. If you do have a quarterback competition, I get it. Otherwise, do not play your quarterbacks. You don't want an injury to the starting quarterback that can derail a season. I get injuries happen at all positions, but why play your starting quarterback in the preseason in a meaningless football game? A long-term injury isn't worth the risk. That is the worst case scenario, that your starting quarterback is out for the year. At least the Jets got lucky. They will have Wilson back. It will be interesting to see how many teams who have starting quarterbacks, and this is usually their second preseason game. Some of them have already played theirs, but still, how many will play their starting quarterback in the preseason in week 2 or week 3, or wait until the regular season? I would not play my starters in the preseason. That's just me. But we will have to wait and see. We're going to go to the Denver Broncos as they are getting set to play Buffalo tomorrow in their second of 3 preseason games. Going back to their first preseason game that happened on Saturday, they beat Dallas 17-7. Yes, I know it's preseason, but there were a few standout performances from that game. The Broncos had 2 competitions to key on, the backup quarterback position as well as the starting punter. We're going to start with the backup quarterback role, as Josh Johnson started at quarterback and played the first half. He is a leader for the backup to Russell Wilson right now. For the longest time, I wasn't impressed, but he got hot as the game progressed. He was finding his open receivers and not forcing the ball into double coverage. Johnson finished the game, at least in the first half because he only played a half, 16 of 23 passing against Dallas for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rippon played the second half, and he was 8 of 18 passing for 113 yards, but didn't have a touchdown. They both look good, but they're not Russell Wilson. At least Russell Wilson is not going to play in the preseason game against Buffalo, so it's still Brett Rippon and Josh Johnson playing quarterback. Now, the Broncos know how important special teams are, especially punters, because they can flip field position. The Broncos have 2 they are looking at. Sam Martin, who has been the Broncos punter for the past 2 years, and Corliss Waitman. Both of them had 2 punts against Dallas. Martin looked so much better with an average yards per punt of 50.5 yards. And it's not really that surprising since he's been with Denver for the past 2 years. One of his punts was down inside the 20. Now, Waitman didn't look so great. 2 punts with an average yards per punt of 37.5 yards. So with that, Martin is clearly the actual leader. He had the better leg, but tomorrow against the Bills, that could all change. One running back that I needed to see a great performance from was Mike Boone, but he didn't. But I'm not going to blame him. But he didn't play well, but the offensive line also didn't create holes for him to run through. Boone had 3 rushes for -1 yard. The whole offensive line struggled to create holes for the running backs. Give credit to that Dallas defense. They wanted to stop the run, and they did a great job of that. Just look at the overall rushing yards. Denver only had 37, so tip your cap to the Dallas defense because they had a pretty good game plan to stop it. Of course, that is just backup players. And I know in week 1 when Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon actually play, and they didn't play in this preseason game, those numbers should go up. In week 1 against Seattle, the Broncos are also looking to add depth at wide receiver. One guy that showed me something was Jalen Virgil, who had 3 catches for 83 yards. He looked good and seems primed to make the team. The 2 others who played well were Brandon Johnson and Seth Williams. Johnson had 64 receiving yards, while Williams had 29 yards and a touchdown. Now I could say that Kendall Hinton had a great game because he did, but I don't think he is in danger of not making the team. He earns his spot no matter what. Hinton had 3 receptions for 53 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, Denver is getting prepared to take on the Buffalo Bills tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock Mountain Time. The question is, how much are we going to see the starters? Russell Wilson isn't playing, so I doubt we will see the starters at all. Again, though, this game is all about backup players and trying to make an impact to show the coaching staff they can earn a spot to make this team. Looking at tomorrow, pay attention to the backup quarterbacks. Both played well last game, though if you look at it, Josh Johnson was better than Brett Rippon. Will Johnson's play continue or will he regress? If he has a bad game, Brett Rippon has a chance to show that he should be the backup quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Other positions to pay attention to are wide receiver, running back, and punter. Denver is still looking to add depth at the wide receiver spot. Jalen Virgil, Brandon Johnson, and Seth Williams all showed me they deserve a spot on this football team. Of course, that was only 1 week. The NFL, even in preseason, is a week-to-week league. These players must show they can play against the Bills. Another great performance by Jalen Virgil, Brandon Johnson, and Seth Williams, and it could be difficult for the coaching staff not to have them on the roster at the end of the day, which means before final cuts before week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks. As for running back, Denver is still searching for a third. Mike Boone didn't impress me, but that could have been the backup offensive lineman. He must play better tomorrow. make a better impression on the coaching staff. We all know how important special teams are to this team. They can flip field position. Well, will Corliss Waitman have a better game because he didn't punt very well? Sure, he had one punt inside the 20, but it wasn't like he was driving the ball like Sam Martin. Right now, I would have to say the edge to the starting punter position is Sam Martin. He proved to me last week why he is the number one punter on the depth chart. The Broncos, though, take on Buffalo tomorrow. Kickoff is at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, which is basically like a normal road game when the Broncos head east. You don't get that very often to play a morning football game in the Mountain Time Zone. This gets them ready for that road game that they have to play in the East Coast. So I like that because of the fact it gets them ready. Please tune in next week as I will give my reaction of the players who made an impact, as well as an update on the backup quarterback and punter competition. Now I'm going to end the show with the NBA. The Denver Nuggets had their schedule, like all the NBA, come out this week. The Nuggets are anticipating their season will be better than last year. Of course, last year the Nuggets ended at 48-34, 6th seed in the Western Conference. If you really look at it, they were missing Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. And I know Michael Porter Jr. played in a few games last year, but it was mostly the Nikola Jokic show. Of course, we had Aaron Gordon and Will Barton, but let's face it, it was the Nikola Jokic show. They lost to the Golden State Warriors in 5 games. So they hope to improve on that, but let's take a look at the Nuggets' regular season schedule. As we all know, the NBA plays an 82-game schedule, 41 games at home and 41 away. Denver begins the season on Wednesday, October 19th, when they hit the road to face Utah. I don't like the first game for the Denver Nuggets because it's on October 22nd. I would have rather had it on the 19th or the 20th, but they host Oklahoma City, and the problem is that's a back-to-back. I believe they play Golden State before that, and then they have to play Oklahoma City. I don't get why the NBA said, okay, Denver Nuggets, your first home game, it's going to be a back-to-back. I don't get it. It makes no sense. But hey, I'm not the NBA who's scheduling these. Now, they end the year on April 9th. So April 9th against Sacramento. Season starts October 19th and ends on April 9th. You know, I don't like road trips, but this was pretty lenient this year. Their longest road trip of the year is March 14th to the 22nd. Denver plays 5 away games in that stretch. Denver's longest homestand. You like homestands because then you get some home cooking. You get to sleep in your bed. You make the other teams travel to you and play in the thin air of Denver, Colorado, or the Mile High City. So that is a benefit for them playing at home. But their longest homestand of the year is from January 5th to January 22nd. During that time, they will host the Orlando Magic, Portland Trail Blazers, Minnesota. I wanted to say Vikings, but of course that's football. That is the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Indiana Pacers, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, the most difficult part about playing an NBA season is back-to-back games. I have never liked back-to-back games because you have to play one game. You basically get into that city really early in the morning and then have a game at night. So it doesn't make sense. I hate back-to-back games, but luckily the Nuggets don't have that many. They have 12 sets of back-to-back games. I really wish the NBA would lower that number just because I don't think the product is that great when a team has to play back-to-back games. One team is rested while the other just played the night before, and it's just not a great product. I wish Adam Silver would look at that and say, you know what? That is not a good thing to have as many back-to-backs. Let's lower that so we have a better product. Now, the date you really want to play is Christmas if you're the NBA. The reason why is most years in the NBA, most years on Christmas, the NBA is the only thing going on Christmas for a league. This year it's the NFL too, but most years it's the NBA and only the NBA. It's a chance for the league to showcase their team. This year, though, the NFL will also have 3 games that day. So you get 5 NBA games and 3 NFL games. In most years, Christmas gives the NBA a chance to own the day. It showcases the league with some great matchups. For the Nuggets, last year was a bummer, and I really didn't understand the decision not to give the Denver Nuggets a Christmas Day game. It didn't make sense for the NBA to leave them out. The reason why, and it's basically center Nikola Jokic was the MVP, and he was looking at winning another MVP last year. So why not show the league's MVP? It just was like, why aren't we playing? I don't get it. Well, it is official. They are playing on Christmas, and they are not left out. The fact is, the Nuggets are part of one of 5 NBA games on Christmas. The games are Philadelphia heading to New York to take on the Knicks. This is actually the order of the games. So that's game 1. Game 2 is the LA Lakers host Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. The Milwaukee Bucks travel to Boston. The defending NBA champions, Golden State Warriors, welcome in the Memphis Grizzlies. The Nuggets end the night as they play the Phoenix Suns. That should be a great matchup of 2 playoff teams who want to win an NBA title. Denver knows it's a long NBA season. You never know what's going to happen in an 82-game season. I really feel like the Nuggets are going to be a playoff team this year, especially with Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. being healthy. Of course, they were the 6th seed last year with Nikola Jokic only being the guy at center and their only superstar. Pretty impressive accomplishment. But if you look at this year, if they're going to have a healthy Jamal Murray and a healthy Michael Porter Jr., that takes the pressure off of Nikola Jokic. And Nikola Jokic may not win a 3rd straight MVP because of those players. But the thing is, Denver wants to earn a playoff spot for the 5th straight year. I think with a healthy Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, they should be easily a number 4 seed, a top 4 seed in the Western Conference. That's what you want. But then again, I just don't know how Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray will look. But either way, the Nuggets want to earn a playoff spot for the 5th year in a row. Before the Nuggets season starts on October 19th, I will certainly have a Denver Nuggets season preview to let you know how I think the Nuggets will do this year. Be sure to watch for that because I will have some interesting takes, and you're not going to be surprised the Nuggets will be a playoff team, but you'll have to wait for that. I'm Jordan Long. This has been Under Review. Read my blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com. Check out all the shows we have on the Silent Sports Network and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of them. We have shows every single week that are educational and very informative. This has been a Sideline Sports production.